And Megan Fox here at PJ Media is explaining.
What's tip 4?
Well, don't trust women. I think you just touched on that with your Dancing with the Stars.
You can still love me.
I do. I love you all the time. But our First Amendment rights are huge. They are very important to me. They should be important to everyone. Don't be a public official if you don't want to be filmed, ma'am.
Megan Fox.
Yes.
Hello everyone, thank you for coming today to raise awareness of lawlessness that is taking place in St. Louis County and in the state of Missouri in family court proceedings. And the most important thing, that the victims of what is taking place are our children. They get traumatized and abused, and we are starting a movement to give our children our voices, so their safety is guaranteed, their lives are protected, and so their futures are happy ones.
We will no longer be silent on the broken family court. This system and the players that operate within this system are not following federal and state laws. They do not abide by their own guidelines and court orders. They dismiss and violate individuals' rights. The players in the system benefit while the families, most importantly the children, are recipients of irreparable damages. There are many more than are here today. Some are afraid to come forward and be punished by the system that lacks accountability, lacks integrity, and their unwillingness to abide by the laws it is to uphold. One person who was not able to join us shared a statement. This court is fraudulently inducing parents and children, believing that justice will be served, to spend millions of dollars and years of their lives to be abused by the system. It is lawlessly selling our children into slavery, where they are forced to live in inhumane conditions and be physically, emotionally, and mentally tortured while having no voice and no say. We treat animals better than our children are. Amen. In this court system.
Yes.
The children are being raped, beaten, brainwashed, drugged, murdered, and permanently damaged by living in fear without recourse. If they don't take their own lives, they are taught that they don't matter. They do matter. Their voices need to be heard, and they need to have a choice in their own lives.
So I'm here because my own daughter was taken from me with the help of my own attorney, Sharon Remus, and the guardian ad litem, Brian Dunlop. She was legally kidnapped from me at the age of 5. And I have been kept from seeing her on a regular basis for the past 3.5 years. And not only has it traumatized myself and the daughter that was taken, it also traumatized her sister, who is still living with me. And I think about my situation, and I know that it is really tough, but you hear the other stories and you just can't believe the audacity that these people have to believe that they can take away from you what rightly belongs to you and your civil right to raise your child as you see fit in order to protect them. They have no care whatsoever for these children, and that's their job. They're hired to protect our kids, and they do not protect our children whatsoever. It's about themselves, it's about their career, it's about their money. It's not about doing the right thing, and that needs to change.
My name is FERCHO. I am here only because of one reason. I had a case in 2005 in the family court system, and my case is now over, it's resolved, but I'm here because I care about what I've read in the investigative reports that is still going on. A civilized and compassionate society is to protect the woman rights to protect the vulnerable based on race, sex, sexual orientation, and of course children. I believe that this is a systemic, corrupted process. I ask one question: why would all 31 circuit judges recuse themselves from a case on hearing on charge of corruption within the guardian ad litem system? This is about one thing. This is about profit for personal gain by the people who are involved, and this includes the attorneys and the guardian ad litems. And they use a circle of psychologists and behavioral health professionals who they self-refer with trumped up, in many cases, charges of mental and psychological problems that then allow them to take children and, in many, many cases, place them in a position where they're in harm against the best wishes of what should happen to that parent by any process that we look at in this country. The defense that's being used by the guardian ad litems and the system is that these are all people who have psychological and mental abuse disorders. It's actually the opposite. It's how they trump this up so that they can continue to drain the pocketbooks of the parents.
Thank you so much.
How they can systemically use the same cabal of people. There's a lot of psychologists and mental health people in this community, but the same ones are involved in the vast majority of cases. So what I look at is this is extortion for personal gain. This devastates parents. It also devastates children and the well-being of parents. And I'm here to say that this must stop, and I also call out one item. Why would the St. Louis Dispatch, as an example, ignore this story? I have repeatedly contacted them. The media needs to get involved. The media needs to take ownership of this, because that's what the media is for, to protect the vulnerable and get the word out. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm here to support all the parents and children that can't speak for themselves because we've been kept in the dark in this situation with the corruption in the St. Louis County family court system. Myself, my daughter was taken from me. I haven't seen her in 15 months and put back into an abusive situation. I left in a domestic violence situation and they ignored me. I raised my voice and no one listened. And they just threw out lies and punishment and took more money from myself and everyone else. But the lives of the children are at stake here.
Yes.
They're in abusive situations, the parents are suffering, the children are suffering, and the children don't know what's going on. They have no clue. And it's sad to say that the guardian ad litems here in St. Louis County are doing nothing to help the children. That's their job. And they've done nothing to help anyone.
Any of us. The evidence was ignored. The attorneys gave up on us. They colluded, they utilized the court services to come up with non-medical explanations to win cases. It was medical malpractice, it was legal malpractice. The state's attorney general ignored, and people have been ignoring it to the detriment of our children. And that cannot happen anymore. Look at all of us. We are good people, we are good parents. We did nothing wrong except stand up for our children. And we had our hands tied. We don't care, we have to fight for our kids. The courts are not doing it. The state is not doing it. And they are aware of all the corruption going on. But they're getting away with it, and they make more money from it.
Yes.
And that is not,
Amen.
the GAL program needs to stop. Until they can get these problems taken care of, it's harming the children, it's not doing any good. And it, nowhere else would this ever be acceptable in any place in the profession.
I am the mother of MIKAELA and HAYNES, and I am her voice because she's no longer with us, because she hanged herself. On November 24, 2018, after her GAO would not help her. She couldn't take it anymore. So that's all I can say.
We've got to stop letting our children be hurt by this system.
You guys can see that each of these people, everybody's story is worse than the story you hear before it. And children are literally losing their lives.
Right.
Because no one will listen to them. We teach our children that if something bad is happening, they should say something, and then they are treated as if they are lying. And worse than that, they're put into the situation they said is abusive full time. They're being ignored. We're teaching them to stand up for themselves and at the same time saying, you don't matter. And these children, they don't stay children. They grow up. They become members of society. What these people are doing isn't just a crime against us now. This is a crime against the entire nation. It's a crime against humanity. Because these kids, they don't get help. They realize, they learn that no one's going to help them. They grow up to have issues. They struggle. And who do you think that affects? Everyone. Every single one of us. And they're doing everything they can to keep this going. And that is the sickest part of all of it, is that they do this without any remorse or any regard for anyone but themselves. And it's disgusting.
I am like 24 years old. I've been subject to child abuse too for years. They've been taking my mom's money. Well, they hurt us emotionally because they make money seem like it's more important than our feelings. And they made the courts in such a way where you have to go in there and act like everything's all right. And if you act out of line and you show your true feelings, they think you're the abuser, or they think you're the one that's out of pocket. And they just can't handle the truth. That's why they feel that way. But my siblings are still, subject to this. They're with the abuser right now. And it's messed up because my mom paid thousands of dollars, right, just to try to get them back. And the court still allowed them to go back to their abuser, So, that doesn't make any sense,
I'm Kenneth ROSA with the Father's Rights Movement. For decades, people have complained that inside these walls there are illegal actions that have been going on with the actors of the family courts. Now, thanks to emails from presiding Judge Burton and a leaked video call of 39 attorneys and guardian ad litems from this county, we now have definitive proof that there are people and actors with this court. My GAL is Elaine Kudlowski, and she absolutely destroyed my two children's lives and left them with their abusive parent, which happens to be the mom in this case. Parents want to be in their children's lives, can't jump through enough hoops or reach enough goals to satisfy these courts to become a fit enough parent to be with their children. The target continues to move until all the bank accounts are drained and assets are gone, and we keep redistributing the St. Louis County wealth back to the court actors, the GALs, the therapists, and all of the people that are profiting off of this extreme. It's not a broken system. It's working the way it's supposed to for their benefit, not ours, not our kids' benefit.
Yeah, that's correct.
The people that are stuck in this unfortunate hell with all of these court actors until there's nothing left. Parents and children find themselves destitute, and then the case can finally be settled once all of the assets have dried up. The court isn't doing what's best for children, easing tensions from those entering a divorce or separation. They're making parents fight to the death over children in this adversarial system, or until all the money has been drained, whichever comes first. This court isn't promoting learning or resources to help parents stay active, parents and participants in their children's lives. It's making sure one parent is always removed at any cost, so the chaos and billable hours continue to ensue. This court isn't promoting children's best interests by fostering compromise and equality. It's forcing court actors' bias, prejudice, deprivation of human rights and children's rights, and discrimination against one parent and another for profit for the state, through child support reimbursement payments and the court actors' redistribution of all of our wealth from parents and our kids' futures to their own personal bank accounts. There's zero accountability with the judiciary protecting itself from any scrutiny at all costs, and including case fixing, ex parte communications among the judges and court actors, the guardian ad litems, the therapists, the members of the ethics committee that are tasked with the job to make sure that ethical behavior is being done are also on the video colluding with these court actors to cover up their illegal actions. Until there is some type of accountability and the tactics and practices fixed within these walls, children will continue to suffer, and children's fathers and mothers will continue to be destroyed with no one for them to reach out to for justice. You know how long it's taken to get a press conference for all of these parents here in the county of St. Louis? Because we've all been crying for decades that there's something wrong with this system. It's illegal what's happening here, and it must be fixed within the state of Missouri for the betterment of its children and its future.
I'm here to be the voice of MIKAELA and Haynes, my sister, who took her own life the day after she found out the GAL was going to testify as a character witness in the case against my stepdad who molested me. She was a strong little girl. She was put through way too much, and she just couldn't take it anymore. In her suicide note, she said, "I hope that you make it through all this court stuff, but I just can't do it anymore." And we see these people sitting in restaurants, having a good old time, not knowing how they've destroyed everyone else's lives, not caring at all.
They're just doing it to more and more and more and more kids all the time. And anybody that tries to say anything about it, they attack whoever says something more.
Yes.
They don't care. They're gangster items.
Gangster items.
That is the truth.
None of these people should be here. That child should still be alive. But nobody would ever listen in this city. You have politics. You have these lawyers all coming from the same law schools, all getting their bar accreditations. They know each other. Judges are getting pulled and commissioners from these lawyer pools. There is so much wrong, and nobody cared until they got busted. We couldn't get any action because they are so good at hiding the corruption in-house and have so many layers, from psychological services to the attorneys to everything. We're judges. We were hopeless. And law enforcement can't do anything because at that point it hit the courts. So there has to be an answer.
It's really been like what I call as a paper genocide. Because, you go into court and you think you're going to get justice for whatever. You think you're going to have the honest courts, uphold what's the truth. And they don't. They attack the person that's the victim more than the person that's the perpetrator. They give them all the rights, and the victims are the ones that pay.
Yes.
Yes.
That is the truth. That is.
And then, when she found out the GAL was going to testify, she said, "I'll kill myself before I have to go back into foster care." My stepdad was using the system and using the GAL to manipulate the outcome of his own sentencing and using his own children to be in the way of that by saying they were educationally neglected to make my mother look bad. And my sisters just could not go through it again after knowing someone who was supposed to be fighting for her was going to be testifying against her.
I remember going in to meet with one of my mom's lawyer's friends or something, and they told me that out of the blue, that I was going to be moving up to Iowa with my father. And when I heard that completely crushed me as a child. And I went on from that point, hearing about hardness and mom. And from that point, for a long portion of my life as a child, I always considered that hardness and mom was the man that ruined my life.
I apologize for having to read this. This is the first time I've told this story like this, so I'm going to use it as a point of reference. I'm a father that wants to be an active participant in my child's life. And at one time I was given that opportunity. Overnight, with no reasonable cause, that opportunity was stripped from me. I'm here to tell you my story as quickly as possible and to implore you to bring attention to the malpractice of these judicial players. In 2009, a St. Charles County judge gave me joint legal and joint physical custody of my daughter. A quote from that ruling says, "Based upon the evidence presented, the court believes father would be more likely to allow the child frequent, continuing, and meaningful contact with mother. And although mother testifies that she believes father would have a relationship with the daughter, she has not supported that statement with consistent actions. To the contrary, she has acted in a fashion that made visitation more difficult for father." In 2015, Judge Burleson and Guardian Ad Litem Nevada Smith decided that I should only get to see my daughter approximately 75 days a year. They intentionally removed me as an active participant in her life. They made that decision not based on any valid cause such as abuse, neglect, or any other heinous act you would suspect. No, according to the ruling, they removed me from her life because, I quote, "the child would have significantly more resources and opportunities at her disposal in her hometown." At that time, the population of Troy, Missouri, her mother's home, was approximately 11,000 people. And the population of Campbell, which is where I'm from, was approximately 2,000 people. The 9,000 person gap was and still is the only significant difference between these two communities. I assure you that my community has every resource and opportunity available to its residents as Troy, making this ruling even more questionable. Our worlds were flipped upside down due to the mindless actions of this judge and guardian ad litem. I have the right to be a father to my daughter, no matter what town I live in. I went from seeing my daughter approximately 200 days a year to now seeing her 75 days a year. During the school year, I see her only 3 days a month. I get 1 weekend a month with my child, depending on how the weekends fall. There are sometimes 6 weeks between our visits. Judge Burleson and Guardian Ad Litem Nevada Smith said this was acceptable because the city of Troy could provide more. Not because of me and what I can provide, not because of what the mother can provide, because of a town. I must also mention that Judge Burleson stated in the ruling that the court finds that mother and father have done considerably well co-parenting the daughter. In addition, it was overwhelmingly clear to the court that both parties equally love and care for a child. So I must ask you, as I ask myself every single day, if it was determined that I equally love and care for my child, why am I not able to equally see and take care of her? Let me close with this. Charles Bukowski once said, "I guess the only time most people think about injustice is when it happens to them. I am your injustice." We or your injustice. Give us a voice. We deserve to be heard. Allow us to be the catalyst to dig into such gross miscarriage of justice. The idea that this could happen one more time to one good parent is simply not acceptable to me, nor should it be acceptable to society.
So much trauma, and I think it's important that we all remember that children have a voice, and they are taught in school to tell an adult, and they will get help. And unfortunately, the system is not operating like that. So when children speak up, they have a voice, and I think it's paramount that we listen to them with everything that they say. And they're taught that, so we need to honor that moving forward.
I'm here on behalf of a father who couldn't make it here today, and he wrote this short note that he wanted read. It starts out, I wanted to give a short statement during the press conference about an unfairness and issues I dealt with during my divorce in St. Charles County. It has been a few years, but the hurt doesn't stop. In the end, I lost my child and almost everything I had. My attorney said that I was going to lose because the judge wanted my spouse to have the children. I didn't realize that the divorce would be over as soon as it began. The judge, Erin Burleson, was true to her word and did everything in her power to make sure my spouse got the child. Like other parents in the court, she was nice enough to say that I'm a good parent. There was little consolation in her words, as they seemed to come from someone gloating at the power and authority they displayed. Afterwards, I heard the story where the judge was dating a prosecutor in St. Charles County. My lawyer said she was just dating the prosecutor. She was dating a lawyer named Steve Hillerman. Although her personal life was her business, this relationship changed the course of my life as a parent. One of the attorneys in my divorce case was Steve Hillerman. Unfortunately for me, he wasn't my attorney. Once he set foot in the courtroom, I was going to lose. My lawyer was terrified of what the judge would do to my attorney's career, that nothing was told to me in order to protect the judge.
Hi, my name's Sue. Our journey through House started in 2003. We were battling in court into 2015. The courts appointed a psychological evaluator by the name of Jim Reed. He was a total hack who took very limited information and expounded on it based on his subjective opinion, painting my ex in a very favorable light, and I was a piece of crap. I lost legal custody of my children. So between Hemp Hill and Jim Reed and Mike Tote, Matt Island was my opposing counsel. And essentially, I feel like set up and destroyed what was left of my family. And the reason why they do this, the reason why they drag this out forever is because they're making money. The judge determines what your GAL is going to get paid. So who is that GAL working for? Right? Working for the judge, because that's who's paying him. Yes. The entire group of actors, the swamp. Okay, the public, please pay attention. You don't want to go to this family court. You don't want to be here. Avoid it like the plague. All right? Don't hire lawyers. Just don't hire them. Please try to resolve it by yourself. Because all they'll do is they'll suck you dry. I went bankrupt. Mike Tote went on vacation at least 2 or 3 times during this year-long battle, and I went bankrupt. So please, televise this. Please get this out, okay? We need this message heard. We need authorities to pay attention. We need parents to join together and fight.
All right, that was the press conference yesterday out in front of the St. Louis County Courthouse. The parents gathered and told their story. Coming to the stream now is investigative journalist Michael Volpe. He was there with me. It's a good thing our cameras were there, Michael, because if they hadn't been, those people would still be silenced. What do you think about that?
It's pretty amazing. We're talking about maybe 100 or more cases just of sexual molestation being covered up in St. Louis County. And they're all three of them were there. I don't know exactly how many local TV stations. They were
four, because there was 11 to 4 and one other one.
Yeah, and none of them have played it, but forget that. Brad FERCHO, he mentioned that he has been calling and writing to them for years. He's not the only one. All of the St. Louis media has known about this for a really long time, and they are willfully ignoring it. They are perfectly okay with little kids being molested because they're too afraid of judges. They're too in bed with judges. Joel Currier is just one of a bunch. He's corrupt, but they're all corrupt. KMOV, they did one half-assed, I'm the only one defending it news story.
When are you going to stop defending it now that they didn't cover this
right.
press conference?
But none of them, they don't want to cover this. These stories are compelling. They're amazing. A girl hanged herself. By the way, we didn't even know that. I didn't know.
So her mother's name is Cynthia Haynes. She gave me her entire record as I was taking off for the airport to go back home. I read that report from cover to cover on the airplane. And let me tell you something. It is the most egregious case I have ever witnessed. The child's father was convicted of raping her sister when the sister was like, I don't know, between 6 and 10 years old, something like that. He was convicted of it. He went to jail. Her guardian ad litem, the sister's guardian ad litem, actually went to testify on his behalf in his criminal deal where they're letting him out of jail. When she announced that she was going to testify on behalf of MIKAELA's abuser, because she was being abused as well, that the court gave him full access to the girls even after his conviction. When she found out the guardian ad litem was going to go and testify on his behalf, she killed herself, and she left a note that said, "I can't do this anymore. Good luck in this court stuff because I'm out." This story, her therapist is a very good man. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he wrote letter after letter after letter to these people. He submitted affidavit after affidavit saying these children should have nothing to do with this man unless they want the contact after they're 18 years old. Despite this man's professional opinion, and he is a child abuse expert. He is a child abuse expert. They ignored him, and they forced these girls into foster care and then back into with the abuser rather than give them to mom. They believed lies that a convicted child abuser said about his ex-wife. He claimed educational neglect because she was homeschooling them. But when they went to public school, they got straight A's. MIKAELA was on the honor roll. A's. She got all A's and 1 B. I saw her report card. So they have no leg to stand on. Her guardian ad litem, I don't know what her story is. I don't know why she's so... I don't have the papers in front of me, but I'll grab them when I get it. I don't remember her name. But they're also in Missouri. This is a different county in Missouri. And Evita Tolu has jumped on this case pro bono now. And she is going to be defending Cynthia Haynes in this case. Or Haynes, sorry, Haynes in this case. They're going before the judge, I believe, tomorrow. And in this, because they're trying to give the younger sister to the abuser. They're still trying to do it. They are still trying to, even after MIKAELA killed herself, they are trying to give the sister to the abuser.
The sister who testified.
I'm not sure which one. There's 3 of them. There's 3 girls.
Oh no, you want that one's probably the older one. But
one of them who was at the press conference named Melissa. There's another one named Sarah, and then MIKAELA, and I think there might be one more. I wish I had it in front of me. I should go grab the file.
Right, but that's one story. Dozens of stories just at that press conference. The St. Louis media, and this is nationwide as well, but they've been ignoring this for years. All right. Brad and others probably were contacting them all the time 15 years ago. Victims that came along 10 years ago, same thing, all the way to the present. There are 3 video cameras that filmed the entire thing. I don't know if it was the Chauvin, the verdict, that they may still get to it, but if they don't get to it, it's inexplicable. Why
No, let
would
me
all
explain something. Let me explain something, Mike. They filmed that at 9 a.m. They had all day. They have an entire staff to edit it. They filmed the bishop of St. Louis blessing tractors at 3 p.m. By 4 p.m., they had the blessing of the tractors on all 3 stations in St. Louis. The blessing of the tractors. Now, I'm all for blessing tractors and blessing the farmland in the spring. But when are you telling me that they couldn't get a 2-minute clip put together that they had at 9 a.m. with a full staff? I traveled from St. Louis to New York and I got it up. But and I'm one person with no staff. I don't believe them. I believe they did it on purpose. I believe that they purposefully did not cover this story, and they are continuing the wall of silence in St. Louis County to keep these victims from getting justice and from being heard.
Right. I agree with you. The St. Louis media is going to have to be dragged to this, but this thing's going to break with or without them. And if it breaks without them, all their careers are over, because they will forever be known as the people who looked the other way when their local judiciary was doing this. And this is enormous. And it's not, I probably am biased since I'm one of the 2 people who broke it. But this is a huge, enormous story, massive story. And it's a lot bigger than blessing the tractors. All right.
Or the potholes. They did a whole story on potholes. I kid you not. And they even talked to neighbors about the potholes in St. Louis. They did a story on a North Carolina Target where a woman found a snake on a can of baked beans. I kid you not. This is what they played.
And they have the entire video, because they played the entire press conference. And you could pick out any 5 minutes randomly if you wanted. It would be compelling. You could stop at any random spot and say, I'm just going to take the next 15 seconds and go to 5 minutes all throughout that hour press conference, and you would make it compelling. You could not screw this up, and they didn't play it. I did the math with you in an email. So since this has started, you've been on with Nick. I think you've been on 4 times. Avita's been on once, and then Megan McLeod, I think, has been on once. And he's not even really in St. Louis. But
he's in Springfield.
Right. We'll say it's close enough. And he's half of it. You were on with Mark Cox once. He doesn't return your calls. Ken Rosa was on with another guy on the same radio station. And then besides that is the Hatchet Job by Joel Currier. And that's it. Since we started covering, you've done a dozen. I think I've done a dozen. The guy from Just Conspiracy, he's done a dozen. How many Daily Docket News? And these are huge stories. We're talking about child molestation being covered up, child abuse being covered up. We're talking about false labels, so you can make tens of thousands in each case, dozens of cases, hundreds of cases, thousands of cases. The worst part about this is, between you and I, we are overwhelmed. So if we could say on occasion, you know what, you should call so-and-so or so-and-so.
Wouldn't that be great?
It would make it easier for everyone, but that's not what they want to do. They are willfully covering this up, and I've seen this from media almost everywhere. They're afraid of judges. They're afraid of guardian ad litem. They're afraid of child protective services. They're afraid of these cases. As I said, the reasons are numerous. Part of it is the lawsuits, but that excuse doesn't work when you have a press conference. That press conference could have been covered easily, quickly. And look, some people name names. If you were worried about that, then use the ones who didn't name the guardian ad litem.
Or what? Actually, I don't even see why that's a problem. They're not liable for it. They can reach out to the guardian ad litem and ask, "Did you do this? What's your response? They don't have to, they don't have to make sure that it's all 100% accurate. They just need to reach out and say, what's your response to this? They don't need, this is, and anyway, these are these people's experiences. Why are they covering it up? I have no problem playing their experiences. In all of these cases that we've looked into, everything that these parents are telling us happened in court records. You know, stay tuned too, because this week I'll be releasing detailed, in-depth interviews that Mike and I did with the victims while we were in St. Louis. We did what the media in St. Louis is not going to do, and that is sit down with these parents and get their stories. And we did that, and we'll be bringing that to you later this week. But you know, it is absolutely unconscionable. However, let's talk about this. We are moving the needle without the St. Louis media. You know, we don't need them. It would be nice if they would come along, but if they don't want to come along and they're not going to tell the biggest story of their career, fine, we'll move the needle without them. We took a little trip. We went to see, we went to Jefferson City while we were there, and we went to the Missouri Capitol, where, by the way, it's like normal life there. You don't have to wear a mask inside the Capitol. And it was for the first time.
Actually, I was just in Florida and in visiting my parents, and that Florida county, it's worse than what it was in St. Yeah, no, it was almost all no outdoors. So it was true.
Wow.
Almost everyone's outdoor anyway in Florida, but no, most indoor stuff in Florida in that particular county. So you're right. St. Louis was almost nowhere.
Well, no, Jefferson City, we were in the Capitol. We walked in, and even the police at the security station weren't wearing masks. So I finally felt like a normal person. That was great. So we went there, and we met with Senator Cindy O'Laughlin, and she actually posted on her Facebook page, she posted let me see, I'm going to show it to you. On Facebook, she posted a very strong statement that I'd like to read part of. This is Senator Cindy O'Laughlin. Some of the victims met with her, and we did too. We gave her what we had and showed her everything we had. And she said, right here, she's got a couple of things that I want to correct in this statement, but this is very interesting. She said right here on Facebook, so that there's a big problem in family court. All kinds of agencies and helpers spring up. People on the taxpayer's payroll. That's one correction. Some of them are not. Some of them are just charging the parents huge amounts of money to do what they're doing, and they're being court ordered to pay it. I believe the very foundation of a successful state is strong families. When that is missing and billions of dollars start being funneled to make up for the issues, then you open a Pandora's box of persons who profit from this misery. This is not to say there are not some great people working themselves to death trying to help others, but there's plenty out there who want to connect with tax dollars for their own gain. These entities want dysfunction to prevail because that is profitable for them, and that is so true. We right now have chaos in many of the children's services that exist purely to help solve problems. This includes our children's division, which has had so many different leaders in the last several years that the entire structure is convoluted. I hear this over and over again from the anonymous individuals who fear for their jobs, but see a department in total chaos. There's an immense concern, and it doesn't look like there's any kind of plan to straighten it out. It looks like the family courts also have some big issues, and money has to be at the base of this problem. Yesterday, I was visited by some people who had reams of material documenting what can only be described as malfeasance in the court system. Gals charging thousands of dollars until families are nearly bankrupt. Judges holding private meetings with gals, and parents being left out of the loop and desperate. I understand that personal behavior has contributed to this situation in the first place, but at least from appearance, it looks like the very system set in place to safeguard people is in some cases preying on the families and their children. I find this information shocking, and yet when I mention it to fellow legislators or others, they nod and affirm what I'm saying. The system we have in place is not functioning and indeed is contributing to the problems. The people who need to be held accountable are counting on one thing, that we will grow tired and just give up trying to right the situation. So that, and she said some more things, but that is absolutely a terrific statement. Thank you to Senator Cindy O'Laughlin for seeing us and for also taking a stand against family court corruption, which is so clear. We've given clear and convincing evidence, have we not, Mike?
We have. I thought of something after I think I left St. Louis, but A legislator, that's a lawmaker, right? They make laws. So legislators for a long time have known that court actors can charge you a lot of money and that you're coerced into paying it. They're lawmakers. How come they've never made a law that stops this?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's-
It is. She's
it's
absolutely right, though. When you tell other legislators besides her that this is going on, their response is, "What do you want from me? I write laws. I don't
Right.
prosecute people. You know, I don't.
Right,
I don't."
but if you hear that court actors charge exorbitant fees and judges coerce parents into doing it, and it's a total mess, and you're a lawmaker, how come you haven't made a law to stop this? So I wanted to write. We'll call this a thought experiment. I like this law idea because I think what you have to do to push this forward is to propose legislation that will fix this. So this is the legislation I've thought of so far. In the state of Missouri, a judge shall not, in divorce and custody issues, appoint a guardian ad litem, custody evaluator, or any other third party. Divorce and child custody matters shall only be decided by the judge, the parents, their attorneys, and other witnesses the parties may call.
I love it.
Right.
And it can fit on one page. It can fit on one page. Let's bring Kenneth Rosa in here. He's from the Fathers' Rights Movement. Ken, what do you think about Mike's proposal for a new law? Did you hear that? Because I love that law. It can fit on one page, and it makes the guardians ad litem completely defunct. Goodbye.
So my thoughts is it was way too short. There wasn't enough convolution to cloud the issue up, and so it's never going to happen.
Yeah, it needs to be about 1,000 pages longer so that we can stick a bunch of stuff in there that we don't need.
Right. I thought of it because Sarah said, this threatens to take down the entire system. So just get rid of her job. If we've shown anything, it's that all of these folks, custody evaluators, they're not just a waste of time. They're counterproductive. If there were no guardian ad litem allowed, Ken would probably see his children roughly half the time, as he was before any of them came in. Most of the time, they almost never fix things. They at best just don't make it worse and then charge you, and then hopefully don't charge you so that you're completely broke. At worst, they make it worse and then they charge you so you're completely broke. They've never been shown to work, number one. Number two, none of these, who exactly is an expert in good parents?
Especially I know. That bothers me. Right. These people really think that they know everything. Kenneth, you were at the press conference. You spoke at the press conference. You helped me with filming at the press conference. You were very vital to the whole operation there. What was your opinion of those stories that you heard while you were there?
Well, time and time again, the issue is that the fathers' rights movement gets into a tit for tat with the single mothers' rights movement, and so what we need to all come together and realize is that they're picking and choosing winners and losers on both sides. Statistically, it's predominantly men, but even if one child or one mother or one father gets left behind by an unjust system. With our society, justice is supposed to be had for all, not just a few that can afford it or the elite or the poor get left behind or people that don't have the education and know how to combat the system.
Yeah, Kenneth, I also wanted to ask you about the press. So you were a witness as well. We saw the cameras there. And you and I both monitored the news, and I was like checking in with you every time I would land in somewhere. Like, what's happening? Did they do it yet? And all I heard was they covered potholes, tractor blessings, a snake on some baked beans in a Target somewhere. And what's your opinion of how the St. Louis media is covering this?
So the 10 p.m. news, we covered a dog that pulled another dog out of a swimming pool that the owners have now installed a swimming pool cover to keep that from happening again.
Before you go on, if it was wall-to-wall coverage with the verdict, that's one thing.
I know.
It wasn't
Right.
even that. It
We
wasn't
were
even
worried
that.
that we'd get kicked off for the Chauvin verdict because it
Right.
was scheduled to come
Wasn't
out at
even
5.
that.
It wasn't even
Wasn't
that
even that.
though. Like,
All
okay,
right,
so
so go ahead.
continue.
Go
A
ahead. Go ahead.
dog pulls another dog out of a pool. Go ahead.
Yeah, so a black lab and a chihuahua were running through the neighborhood unleashed against the leash laws, and the chihuahua fell into the pool, and the black lab took 30 minutes to pull the chihuahua out of the pool, and that's a great touching story. But it wasn't just the trial and the verdict. We covered stories such as that. We did have a hero police officer pull an elderly lady out of a burning home. So that story needs to be on there.
That's a worthwhile story. I'll give him that one.
That one's a good story, but the potholes, the dog pulling the other one out, like we could have took
The
we could have took
tractor
1 minute.
blessing. Could we have moved the tractor blessing to tomorrow for the parents, for the children who came forward to say I was raped and abused, and the court covered it up? How about just for the children?
Ken, talk. How many times and how long has it been since you've contacted the St. Louis County, the area media, and also other people that you know? Do you know a few or a lot of other people who have contacted the media and the response?
I know of probably 100 fathers that have told them to cover this story, and they're not picking it up. The few stories that we've seen has been 3 women, and so there's no other side of the coin to this of fathers that are being abused by the system. But we're also not getting anyone to cover the story. You know, the story that they did cover was the fact that people have been extorted for large sums of money. It wasn't about the damage to children or the damage to their lives. It was that they've spent so much money in the 3 stories that they did cover with those ladies, which I personally know all 3 of them. Well, I'm sorry, I don't know the lady in Lincoln County yet, but I'm working on that if she reaches back out to me. So the coverage that we've had has been minimal. And at times,
in those 3 cases, they left out the fact that those children were abused. They did not cover it in Evita's case, in Courtney Nolan's case, and they had allegations of abuse, domestic abuse.
Not just allegations, but very compelling is the word I'd use.
Substantiated, yeah.
Substantiated. So kind of what you're basically saying is 100 people roughly have reached out. They've never done a story among your group. And then probably roughly as many women have reached out. And this is years and years, right? You're not talking about like the last few months. The first time you reached out was probably years ago, right?
No, I'm talking about in the last probably 60 to 90 days since all of these stories started breaking of all the corruption in there. I know of probably 100 fathers that have reached out to the local St. Louis media.
All right, just in the last 90 days. But you and others have been reaching out to them for years as well before then, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So and they never cover these stories. They are in effect complicit. All right. They know what's going on. It's not that they're not covering it because they don't know what's going on. It's that they're too afraid. Or maybe too embedded in the system. And they don't want to cover it because the judiciary comes back very, very hard at you. And they don't care that kids are being molested. They don't care that kids are being abused. They don't care like that dad. They don't care that dads and moms are taken out of their children's lives for no reason, flimsy reason, because you live in a town with 2,000 people. Whatever else they come up with. You and I met a guy, it was because he's a pilot. Oh, you're a pilot. It's the wrong occupation. And these are not anomalies. And by the way, that guy who lost his kids because he lives in a town of 2,000 people, let me tell you what happened. That's Judge Burleson. She wanted him out of his child's life. So you'll find whatever the reason is. So if you can't find a good one, you find a not so good one. And she came up with your town has 2,000 people. She wanted him out of your child's life. That's not a unique story. Ken could probably give her 50 or whoever called 50 people, 100 people who are going to have a story similar to that. So you can create the pattern. You can show the systemic nature of it, and they don't do it. And that's why it goes on. It's much harder when media from the outside is covering it, because our audience is nationwide. Even on a St. Louis story, it might be more weighted heavily to St. Louis, but not so much. KMOV, that's 20,000, 30,000 people right in the county. Same thing with the other stations. That's what would break it. This is going to take a lot longer, but I can promise you this: we break this, and they are sitting on the sidelines. That's not something I will forget or forgive. It's not something
It's
a
not
lot
going
of
to be
people.
good for their careers. I'll tell
Right,
you
it
that
won't.
much.
Yeah, it won't. It'll be very, very bad. I will
Very
spend the
bad.
rest of my life making sure they never work again.
Well, good. I'll help
right.
you with that.
Right.
Let's also note, to Michael's point, that the Burleson case, where she removed the child that had been predominantly with the father, was in direct violation of the state law, Senate Bill 1550 or HB 1550, that was passed in August of 2016, which says that the best interest of the child would have been served in leaving the child in the community it was in, but yet she used the community that the child was in, of a town of 2,000,
take
to
her
move
out.
the child to a town of 15,000. So
Against
that's
state
a
law.
direct
Let's talk
violation
about
of the
that.
law.
Kenneth, there's other direct violations of the law that we discovered while we were all together. And I'm glad that we were all together face to face, because I'll tell you what, it made a big difference to me in the brainstorming. Zoom is a little bit tough, but when you're together, there's something about the energy that starts to flow and things get worked out, don't they? And one thing that we discovered was that you helped get a bill passed in August of 2016, where judges are supposed to be writing in their custody orders, why, if they chose to give less than 50-50 custody, why they did so, and they're supposed to sign it. What have we discovered, Kenneth, about when we started talking to these families, these parents who have these decrees? They don't have anything like this from the judges, do they? And what do we call that?
So there was another group that I worked closely with before I joined up with the media of the Father's Rights Movement. There's another group called Americans for Equal Shared Parenting. They were very instrumental in that law as well, and they have some very good people that are, they're very good with the language and litigations, things that should go into these bills. So that bill it does state in there, that law was passed in 2016, and it does state in there that there should be a facts, findings, and conclusions. That's what they call that law, is a facts, findings, and conclusions law, with a presumption of 50-50. So it doesn't make a rebuttable presumption of 50-50 that you have to start at 50-50. It just says that there should be a presumption. So from that presumption bill, there is a facts, findings, and conclusions in there. A judge is supposed to specifically list out what reasons they achieved or came to in conclusion to why a father or a mother didn't get 50-50 equal time. And that is supposed to give you reason to take to an appellate court if you don't agree with the decision. So it was an accountability bill. And as we just stated, Judge Burleson directly went around the stated laws of Missouri, which is to leave the child in a community or its school. She moved the child from that community, its school. There's several violations just in that one case of where she went around the state law of Missouri and did whatever she wanted to, because there's no accountability to hold her accountable for breaking the law.
No, that's what I was going to ask you next is, who do you go to now? We found, and if a judge is in violation of state law, by the way, that's supposed to remove their immunity. So you're supposed to be able to hold them accountable if they are breaking state law. It appears that the judges in St. Louis County and St. Charles County, and I bet in all the other counties too, once we start looking, are not doing facts, findings, and conclusions in these custody cases. And if they're not doing that, they are in violation of that 2016 law. Is that correct?
If there is no facts, findings, and conclusions in there, they're in violation of that law. If all of the things weren't considered and they're just going off of the things just in that one case with Burleson, then they're in violation of the law. I'm no legal scholar. I'm not a licensed attorney, but to my understanding, if you violate a state or federal law, then you have violated someone's rights, and therefore that would remove your judicial immunity. And these judges should be open to civil litigation in state or family court by not following the color of the law. That would fall under, the 14th Amendment of your due process and all that type of thing. And it would fall under fair trials. I mean, there's so many things that you could
due process
walk down
clause.
that path to.
Yep.
Right. Look, if you can decide that one person's city or town that they live in is not as good as another person's, and they use that, you can come up with anything. The other thing I want to point out, this is not the first, the second, or probably even the third time that we have heard about Judge Aaron Burleson doing something tyrannical, destroying somebody's life, and I'm almost certain it's not going to be the last time. That is a very bad judge, and I think there's a lot of victims of her out there, and I don't think it's going to be very hard to find more.
I'll pull up a picture of Judge Erin Burleson here. I wrote an article about her because she's the one that the father, the one who wasn't there, who sent the letter to be read, was talking about having an affair with the prosecutor of St. Charles County. That is absolutely verifiable fact. It's been reported on by the St. Louis News and by Missouri News, because he was out in front of her house, causing a scene, made such a stink that 911 had to be called. And of course, he wasn't prosecuted. Here she is. That's Judge Erin Burleson. She had a Twitter account where she posts photos of her abs on Twitter. She's very beautiful, but she's pretty ugly on the inside from what we've heard. This woman, the father who wrote the anonymous letter, accused her of having an inappropriate relationship with the attorney on the opposing side, which caused him to lose his case, is what he believes. I've reached out to Judge Erin Burleson. I've asked her for comment on these specific things, and I have heard no response. None of these people will respond to any questions about any of this.
She's limited on what she can say about a specific case. But if you ask her, are you having an affair with someone? She's not only allowed to respond, you would think. If it's not true.
If it's not true, she should just say no.
Not just, look, if I'm a judge, I wouldn't just say no. I'd say no. And if you print that, I promise you, you'll be sued.
Sure.
If it's not true.
And it is an allegation. We don't know what's true. And we certainly offer the opportunity for Judge Burleson to respond to that claim.
The affair is just one piece. This is a tyrannical judge. She's not fit for the bench. And as I said, we are nowhere near done hearing from her victims. I think a lot of victims will step forward because I think there are hundreds.
Well, I look forward to the St. Louis Press putting together their clips. Maybe they're doing such a great editing job that it's just taken them many, many hours to put it together, and it's going to take them longer than it took me to travel from St. Louis to New York and get my kids off to school and also do the editing all by myself. And I got it up before they did. But maybe they're still working on it. I don't know. We'll give them a few days, but I still think that it's egregious that they didn't air even 2 minutes of it. Like you said, you could have taken any 2 minutes and it would have been compelling television. And the pain, it's an emotional video to watch. Every time I watch it, I get choked up, especially when Marcus Crane tells his story. And of course, the story of the child who killed herself because of this court system. This is and I read her whole file, by the way. It is one of the most egregious miscarriages of justice. And I'll be interviewing her mother very soon. And, but we're at the end of our hour here, so we're going to say goodbye. Unless you've got something else, Mike, an update that you want to talk about.
Yeah, you saw in the background, Save Delilah. That is, that's the daughter for Angie Freiner. She has not seen her or spoken to her daughter in, I think, 3 weeks. This is how brazen they are. They have moved her child, trafficked her across state lines. Maybe
across several states.
State lines.
We think Arizona, possibly Wyoming, and Montana.
And apparently the system thinks there's no reason. Forget having any contact. Forget even phone calls. There's no reason for mom to know where her daughter is. The guardian ad litem says she either doesn't know or will not tell mom. The judiciary won't. One last thing. Judge Nicole Zellweger recused herself from the case. They refused to put a judge on until I sent them an email, and the very next day they put a judge on. It looked like, and Angie said this from the beginning, she thought that lady recused herself so they could just put the file into like a netherworld, because they won't have a judge. And
they just want to strip her of all her rights, even though her parental rights are still intact. They just want to pretend like they aren't.
This is so lawless, and what makes me even sicker is how keen they are on, you can't illegally record us. If we try to illegally record you, well, that's a huge problem. but you can move a kid across state lines and not tell her mom, and that's perfectly fine.
A kid who says she's being molested, you can move her across state lines with the guy she says molested her, but you're going to come after us for recording your courtrooms where you're doing this criminal activity. Unbelievable. We'll never stop doing it. We'll never stop. And anybody out there who wants to record in your courtrooms, and you want to send those recordings to us, we will never tell anyone what your identity is. We will protect your identity at all costs, and we will publish that material. We don't care what the judges are saying. We don't care. We will not listen. Kenneth, what do you have coming up? What's next for you in the Father's Rights Movement in this to try and get this story out to the more public than we have already?
So first, let me answer your question earlier. We glossed over that real quick. What happens if a judge like Aaron Burleson breaks the law? Who do you go to? There is no one you can go to. You can go complain to a senator and try to get some hearings done. You can file an unethical complaint with the Bar Association, who happens
But the Bar Association's in on it.
It's the fox guarding the hen house. I mean, it's not like they're going to find any wrongdoing
or
within their elite.
Or you can appeal. How well does that go, Ken?
Well, you can appeal if you have $10,000 as a retainer and you're willing to spend another $20,000 to $50,000.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, you actually have the money. How often do those things get overturned?
Here is the wild thing that I have noticed in my journalistic experience. Almost all of these crazy circuit decisions almost always get overturned in an appellate district. I haven't seen very many that don't, because there's a panel of judges that are required to follow the law. They're required to make lawful decisions. And so they kick those back down to the circuit and tell them, hey, fix that. You messed up. But if you have a judge that's doing that over and over and over again, shouldn't that judge be removed from the bench or for violation of people's rights?
Well, we were told when we were in Jefferson City, we were told in one of those offices of one of the senators, I don't remember which one now, we were told that is the representative's job. They have impeachment powers, that they can impeach a judge and then the Senate can remove the judge. But we asked them how many times that's been done, and we got no answer. I don't know. It might not ever have been done.
Right. I wanted to, one thing, what Ken described, that's exactly what happened to a judge named Lyris Young in Philadelphia. She was overturned so much that they removed her. You can't remove her from a judge because she was elected, but they moved her from family court to a court where she could do less damage, and she was still doing damage. But I've actually found, if that's true in Missouri, that's very rare. Minnesota, there's a bunch of corrupt appeals court judges. And most times appeals courts say it's all discretion, everything falls under discretion. But Ken is also right. The major problem with that is the first court takes all of your money, so you never have the money to appeal it anyway. So it really is a moot point.
Absolutely. So what I have coming up, I'll be releasing an article later this afternoon on some of the things that we had going on. My angle's a little bit different than what you guys have been reporting on today, and taking some of that stuff that we've all done and putting my own spin on it and dropping that. So I believe here in 30 minutes, I'm going to try and get into the Melissa Meldon case and see if they'll let me in on those judicial things. They seem to be having a problem with accountability, and they're keeping people out of the courtrooms. She was scheduled until late last night to be in person, and then all of a sudden it popped up that it was going to a WebEx, and that the reason why they're not going to allow outside parties or media or anyone in is because they have too many cases to get to today.
What? Oh, excuse me? That doesn't make any sense. What does it matter what the schedule is?
May as well have said that the sky is blue, so we're not letting you in.
That is nuts. Oh, well, listen, Kenneth, send me the info to get into that. I'll try and get in too. That'll be fun.
Right.
We'll try and get in.
We're continuing with our struggles, and of course this is not unique to St. Louis or Missouri, to actually be able to exercise the right to have open courtrooms. It's almost stunning how nonchalantly they will tell you, no, you're not allowed into a courtroom. in the United States of America. It's absolutely stunning.
You know, they used to have a saying like lockdown like Fort Knox. Since all of these judges have been having these leaked videos and they're getting caught doing illegal actions that go against the state laws of Missouri, they have locked these courtrooms down like Fort Knox because they don't want to get caught or be recorded or doing any of the things that their egregious actions are doing. So it's getting even harder and harder for any of us to get into these things.
Right.
Well, something's going to break at some point because, you know, it's 2021 and there's a lot of places to hide a recording device. Let's just say that. And
Right.
I don't think that they're going to be able to keep it out unless they're planning on, I'm not going to give them any ideas. So let's just leave it at that we have an army of people who are committed to doing this, to getting the information to the public, and we'll keep on publishing it as long as we get the information. I just want to say thank you to the supporters out there who have been supporting the GoFundMe. I dropped a link in the live chat. The GoFundMe fundraiser allowed us to get to St. Louis. It helped me to pay for that trip and to get more interviews, and I'll have so much more content in the next couple of days because of that. That was made possible by those of you who donate to the cause, and I appreciate that because this investigation needs a budget. We don't have CNN's budget, and it's going to take a while. It's going to take it takes funds to do it, and so hopefully in the next couple of months we'll be doing more trips. And I just thank you for your support. Kenneth and Michael, thanks for being here. I'm going to call it a day today because we're over an hour, and we will definitely be back later this week. I'm going to be doing editing all night tonight on those terrific interviews that I got. Kenneth was a part of that as well. There were some fantastic stories in that group that we have talked to, people you've never heard from before. And this is just going to be, it's going to be great. And if the St. Louis media doesn't want this story, I'm fine with that. I will continue to tell it, whether or not St. Louis does.
I'm not fine with it, but as I said, this is gonna break one way or the other. It's we can do this the easy way or the hard way.
We can do it the easy way or the hard way.
If this happens
That's right.
the hard way,
in Judge Zellweger's words, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. I can tell you
this: if this happens the hard way, which means the St. Louis media ignores it, I won't forgive. I won't forget. The world won't forgive and forget.
No,
you will be known as the people who stood up for pro-pedophile judges, pro-pedophile guardian ad litem. For guardian ad litem cared more about their pocketbooks than keeping parents with kids. Those are not good
Gangsters
things.
ad litem, as the people in the press conference said. I think I'm going to use that. I may make it the title of my next book, Gangsters ad litem, and their war on America's children. I think I just came up with my next book title.
There you go.
Anyway, thanks a lot, guys, for being here. And everybody out there, keep up the good fight. Send us the information. Get us the recordings. We will publish it, and we will protect your identities. Until next time, have a great evening.